So, could you please briefly introduce yourself and tell what company are you representing? Starting from Ewa.
My name is Ewa Łabno-Falęcka. I represent two companies of Daimler AG in Poland, Mercedes-Benz Polska and Mercedes-Benz Manufacturing Poland.
Okay. Amrit.
Hi, I'm Amrit Chandan. I represent, I'm the CEO and co-founder of ACELERON, and we make advanced lithium batteries which are designed for the circular economy.
Matthew.
I'm Matthew Pencharz. I am the co-founder of Air.Car, which is a connected vehicle subsidiary of Tantalum, and we are looking about how engine data can, how we can use engine data to show what real-time air pollution emissions are from transport to help cities and consumers and individuals and businesses mitigate the impacts of road transport and reduce air pollution.
Yes, but Matthew, in your previous life, you used to be a deputy mayor of London in charge of environment. So could you please tell us how can local government make a difference in the topic we are discussing about, like cleaner air and basically pollution?
Yes, so I was the Deputy Mayor of London for Environment up until May 2016. And the greatest problem I had to deal with was air pollution. London is the biggest city in Europe. It's horribly congested. The switch to diesel drivetrains over the last 20 years in the European Union has exacerbated what was already quite a challenging problem. And the truth is, there's a big supermarket in the UK called Tesco's that people have probably heard of. I think their catch line is every little helps. And when it comes to addressing air pollution, you really got to look for where the air pollution comes from and seek to take measures to address all the sources. So, for example, the ways in which buildings are heated need addressing. It's not all road transport. About half or so of the air pollution in London is road transport. The other half is from other sources, industrial, heating and other processes such as that. And the idea is to look at all the sources and seek to address them. In London, we're quite lucky that the mayor had quite strong powers around transport and could bring in charging schemes, could bring in regulations to say that only certain cars or vehicles could drive into areas without having to pay a charge. And that's a scheme that's coming in to force next year. But we could also look at the other vehicles that we license and that we regulate. So, for example, the taxis. Taxis in London, they're very iconic looking, they're bowler hatted shaped, but they're quite highly polluting. In fact, one taxi is the same as half a bus, which shows you there is something that needs to be addressed. So we brought in a regulation around that new taxis had to be zero emission capable. And there were lots of little things like that added up to increasing improvements in air quality, but there's still quite a long way to go.
Amrit, were Matthew successful? You are a resident of London, so you can tell about it from the citizen's perspective.
Yes, a lot of the measures that are being taken place, the policy is having a huge impact, and we're immensely grateful for that. The air quality is improving all the time, and it's a big factor in the news a lot because many deaths are attributed to the poor air quality. So there's a huge health implication there from how do we support this as a society when it comes to our national health service.
Yes. Eva, are we going to get rid of pollution if majority of vehicles, cars are electric here in Poland? Or 25% of cars are electric.
Let me start with a general remark. I represent automotive business, and the automotive industry is on the threshold of a transformation that goes far beyond new drive systems. We do not offer cars anymore. We do offer mobility, responsible and modern mobility. Electromobility is definitely one of the crucial points, but not the only one. By the way, we as Mercedes are also one of the pioneers of the electric mobility. We launched 2007 the first smart electric. By the way, you can not only see electric smart family on our booth in the hall number C, you can also make a drive with electric vehicles. So they are on the market for the last 11 years. last week we launched the first so-called Mercedes under electric vehicles in Stockholm, EQC, because our philosophy is maybe quite different from other companies. We are not interested in prototypes. We are not interested. We are interested in mature products because we want to offer our customers all the comfort and safety in the electric cars, exactly the same as Mercedes-Benz combustion engines.
Yes, and as far as we learned briefly a few months ago, we entered into a PPA contract for from wind farms, and I think it's the first example of a Polish industrial industrial entity in Poland which enters into contract with renewable energy.
This is another story because we say we want to offer responsible mobility over the whole value chain. It means from research over production to product. So actually we paved the way also for carbon neutral manufacturing, and our to-be-built factory in Jawor, we will power this factory only with renewable energy. So it will be really a high-tech green factory.
And what do you think should be done to make it a role model for the industry? This kind
Just
of
follow our example. It's possible. It's possible. In Poland, we have the law you mentioned, third-party agreement, which means that we have they deliver energy, we buy energy from them, but either we nor Tachalin, the wind farm, has a distribution network, but we use the third party, the distribution network of TAURON in our case.
Okay.
It's possible.
Okay, we briefly mentioned like the actions from the local government. We'll get back to that. We briefly mentioned also the industrial job that industry is making. What people in business, in technology business, could do to fix the problem of smoke? What kind of solutions that technological companies, startups provide are best way to fix this problem?
So one of the key enabling technologies for a lot of these solutions are batteries, because it's difficult to have a factory running purely on renewable energy if that's the only source of the energy. So batteries are a great way of enabling this to happen. And actually we find that especially in regions where grid infrastructure isn't so good, so in many parts of the developing world, people get by on burning diesel generators or kerosene fuel to make energy that they need to do even the basics, like have an education. And batteries, again, really play a big role here in decarbonizing all of these generation sources, static generation sources in and around urban populated areas, which help to reduce the amount of particulates that people are breathing. In many parts of Africa where kerosene lamps are used, this is a significant contributing factor to a reduction in tangible lifespan that these children have because they're trying to study by the light of kerosene lamps. And so batteries are a really great way of helping to solve this. And tech in general, startups, they really approach problems from a completely different view, and that often brings to light new solutions. So Africa is a great example. All over Africa, there are many startups from within Africa and outside of Africa that are revolutionizing the way energy is being used and stored in those regions.
We are talking a lot about solutions, but we do not talk a lot about costs of this kind of solutions. When we take into account the numbers, Ewa, what are the prices, operating costs, taking account the current increase of energy prices? You know, when you consider now 1 megawatt hour in 2016 used to cost 160 zloty. Now it's around 290 zloty. When you take into account this kind of increases in prices, how is it possible to make operating costs of electric cars affordable? Like using electric costs affordable here in Poland when you compare it with diesel cars?
I don't think I'm the right addressee for this question. I can only say, according to our estimation, in 2025, up to 25% of our cars will be pure electric. And if you calculate that Mercedes-Benz is now selling 2.5 million cars, there is still a great number of cars who will run on combustion engines. So the cost of energy, I mean, this is the question for companies offering the charging infrastructure and so on. I can only say combustion engine is not out of the game, not completely. And for example, in our factory in Jawor, we will be producing the ultra high-tech diesel. I know talking about clean diesel, everybody will be laughing, but there is a high-tech diesel 4-cylinder with great performance and combined, for example, with a small electric engine, it will be a great solution, plug-in hybrid, also for a long way. So battery vehicles are one question, hybrids the second question, and high-tech combustion engine, as I mentioned, it's still not out of the game.
Sure. Getting back to London and to your experiences, because you are not only deputy mayor, but you also was a member of the network of mayors, and you get the know-how of different cities. What kind of analyzing this know-how? What kind of like three most best takeaways could we are coming from your experiences for Polish cities? We know about like the statistics. 33 out of 50 most Polish cities here in Europe are in Poland. How, like, three best solutions you feel that could be applied here?
Well, I'll talk about London's first. I hope the audience doesn't mind a bit of chauvinism around that. We were the first to bring forward a congestion charge pricing congestion. And if you look at the external costs of motor transport, we talk about air pollution a great deal, and that's only right. But when it comes to economic costs, at least, something like 90-95% of the external costs of driving is actually congestion. So London sought to address that in the early noughties, and it's interesting to note that in areas of London which have gentrified, have become richer perhaps, car ownership has actually dropped. So you see in areas of the city in inner London where the population has actually densified, become richer, but the number of cars moving around, the car ownership has dropped. So it is possible in mega cities, but also in much smaller places. Many Spanish and French cities made a decision, I suppose, in the mid-90s to turn away from the car-centred way of running cities, but also to think about perhaps more people-centred. And it is doable over a decade or so to transition people away from everybody having to jump into their own car. If you look at other places, so I was talking earlier around where the sources of air pollution actually are from. So here in Europe, in the UK, in large part is road transport. Here in Poland, however, it'll be in large part the major coal-fired power stations, and that's clearly a more difficult thing to transition away from, but clearly something the national government, I would guess, has to look at. If you look at New York City, most of their air pollution was actually coming from heavy fuel oil to heat the buildings. So over the last 10, 15, 20 years, they have turned away from that and switched to natural gas, in the way that the UK came off coal to heat our homes in the 70s and 80s and address that source of air pollution. So clearly there's thinking about that. But then there's also some quite innovative schemes in places like Barcelona, where they have these super blocks, where they have been pedestrianising large parts of the inner city and funneling road traffic, except for residents, down particular roads. And that really helps to seek to, I suppose, address the sort of the congestion problem and try to make cities more livable.
We are having a latest question also on Slido, and I would like to ask it to three of you. How about regulations and system of incentives for developers of building air mobility friendly buildings? It needs solving both on national and local levels. is this kind of like solutions available in the like cities and places you live? Amrit.
Yeah, so in the UK, many city councils are now making, as part of their planning regulations, they have a framework and provisions for putting in how friendly the development sites are to electric vehicles, e-mobility, and low carbon areas. So in the Midlands, for instance, in the UK, there are if you now want to build a development site, if you want to build a shopping centre, or if you want to build a retail centre, you have to put into place a certain number of electric vehicle charging points, and this is expanding across the UK and across many parts. So I think regulation has a huge part to play for how we can regulate this and encourage the building of e-mobility friendly buildings, from installation of charging points, but also how other ways of incentivizing, so special parking places and so on.
Matthew, would you like to ask?
When it comes to regulation, in the UK at least, it has a bad reputation. There's often talking about bonfire quangos and burning red tape. But sensible environmental regulation that local government can do can have a real triple win. And I'll give an example from London, which I think is quite transferable. And that was around the regulation of taxis that I mentioned earlier. So the mayor stated, the previous mayor stated around 4 or 5 years ago when I was serving with him, to say that all new taxis from 2018, so from the beginning of this year, 9 months ago, had to be zero emission capable. And what that did is that attracted £200 million of investment into the UK, into a factory. Now, it could have been in London, that would have been perfect, but it was in Coventry in the West Midlands, to build these taxis. So which created around 200 jobs as well. So you had an environmental regulation that was going to improve air pollution, improve air quality. It attracted a lot of inward investment into the UK, created a lot of jobs, and also reduces the whole life costs of these vehicles. So for the taxi driver, as long as you have the right financial products in, services in, to allow them the upfront capital cost of buying these new vehicles, and of course that can be amortized over the lifetime of that vehicle, and he or she saves as well. So it shows you that carefully thought through regulation can really have a triple win, and I think that is a approach that really is transferable all over the world, and certainly in Poland.
Ewa, we've got like just more than 2 minutes left, but I will ask you the kind of broad question, because how the rising awareness of the climate change and the aspect of pollution is impacting, maybe changing your business model of Mercedes-Benz. How it impacts those changes?
It has a great impact, of course, on the automotive business, as I mentioned before. I think nowadays mobility is a kind of human right. People want to be mobile, and you have to make it compatible with climate protection, environment protection, and so on and so on. I'm not the guy from the government, from the government side, so I don't want to talk about incentives. I think we should look at it from the other side. As a manufacturer, as inventor of the automobile, Mrs. Emilewicz spoke about Henry Ford, but actually it was Gottlieb Daimler and Carl Benz who invented the automobile 1886. We offer mobility. It means we offer a great range of product and services, because, let's say, a electric smart as microcar is not a solution for people commuting on longer distances. So you have some transportation model for the city, you have some other transportation model for long distances. We are very Eurocentric. You were talking about Africa, so not every solution. Probably electromobility is not the only remedy for all the problems also of big cities, because apart of the pollution, you have traffic jams, you should think about safety, and so on and so on. That's why we are talking about electromobility only as one pillar of the solution. You have also connectivity, connected cars, autonomous driving, electromobility, and shared services. And probably this is also a solution for big cities, because shared cars, we have some Polish companies in Katowice, I don't know, but in Warsaw there are 3 or 4, in Wrocław and Gdańsk. And the trend is definitely from individual mobility. You don't have to own a car, you just buy mobility. And we, as the inventor of the automobile, we offer to our customers what they need, depending on where they live and what they are doing and what they need the car for. In Warsaw, by the way, in Warsaw Śródmieście, in the very city center, there are 800 cars per 1,000 inhabitants. In New York, you have 200. In Berlin, you have 300. I don't know in London. I don't have the numbers of London. But this is a great tool to reduce the number of cars in the city center. And probably we should look about the benefits also for car sharing company, because we wanted to go with Car2Go, frankly speaking, to Warsaw, but the business model was not optimal because there are actually no benefits for shared services.
Ladies and gentlemen, to fix the problem of smoke, we need combined actions of citizens, of local and national governments, of industry and of technology company. Please, thank you for our discussion, dear panelists, and please for the round of applause for them. Thank you very much.
Thank you.